And we'll start in the reverse order again, starting with Marsha and working our way back. Question number one, what is your definition of shared governance? And for the current trustees, if you could please give examples of how you have ensured shared governance at Santa Barbara City College. And for the challenges, please explain how you would assure shared governance as a new trustee. Marsha.
Well, hello again. Shared governance is a legal right that faculty and students and classified staff have to have meaningful input into decisions that affect them. This is a legal right that they have under the California Code, and it is a condition of the college being paid by the state. So it's extremely important. Why is it important? It's important because it helps make the right decisions. You're asking the people on the ground who are affected, who understand what will happen. And that was why I was so concerned, but I did not see it happening. What I saw was meetings where there were reports on what had already been decided. That is not shared governance. The two most important decisions that this college has made in the last 2 years, the decision to cut classes and the decision to grow the reserves rapidly in a time of economic distress, those two critical decisions did not go through shared governance. Look at the minutes of the board meetings. Look at the minutes of all of the meetings, and you will not see a discussion that says, how much do we need in reserves? Why do we need those reserves? What are we using them for? Should we have a study of our reserves that might recommend how much we need in reserves? How much does it save to cut classes? How much does it hurt our students in backing up the student population trying to move through, trying to graduate, trying to get the classes they need to move to a four-year college or to get a job? Those questions were not asked in the board meetings. I think that they need to be asked today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shared governance, it's actually termed participatory governance in the education code, is a fact of life. And City College has implemented it and we follow it. All segments of the college community have a voice, and board proceedings are entirely transparent and open to the public. There are mechanisms for shared governance to operate through various committees, College Planning Council, study sessions of the board. All of these are available for input. With respect to continuing education, there was in fact no formal apparatus set up because nobody had considered that necessary. However, when we began to hear from continuing education people who were unhappy with the decisions made, budget-driven incidentally, and state-driven, to cut classes, we responded. We tried to explain why this was necessary, why we couldn't go on spending money for certain classes, why the state demanded that we put some of them on a fee-paying basis. Most people accepted this. They said, I'll pay for my classes. I don't see a problem with that. We have a foundation scholarship fund now for those who cannot genuinely afford the small fees, very small fees that are charged. But I assure you that shared governance does operate at City College. We listen to all segments of the community. It's just that occasionally shared governance, you have to say no. It's like the nuns in Catholic school used to say when they were questioned about the efficacy of prayer. Sometimes the answer is no. And unfortunately, that's the situation in which sometimes we are. Thank you.
Well, participatory governance or shared governance means that everybody gets their say. And so what happens is that you take whatever decision has to be made to the people And most of the time, when they put their heads together, especially people that know what's going on, it comes up with an even better idea than anybody had on their own. So you don't go to somebody and explain what happened to them and explain what you are about to do because you've already decided it, and then explain how it's going to happen to them and see if they accept it or not. That's not shared governance. That's top-down, telling people what you're going to do, and that's not good. Example, when I went to well, I've already told you about the advisory council, but it could have been fixed so well, because we could have taken, you know, we have to take out so many dollars or so many classes or that sort of thing. Take it to the people, take it to them and have them decide. It's not really difficult. It's actually more difficult than just trying to explain it and saying you gotta live with it. But it's really much better than that. So I would hope that that's what I would do. I would make sure that if we have to make some cuts, we take it to the departments. 90% of the budget is on the credit side. So you would take it to those departments and say, how can you save some money? How can you work collaboratively with other departments? Or how can you go for grants? There are so many ways to do things that are very different than what's happening right now. That's the kind of thing that shared governance or participatory government results in.
This college works from the bottom up, I can assure you that. I attended a student senate meeting the other day, and we spoke to the students. They're very much involved in what's going on. I don't think people are talking to students here. Are there any students from City College here? Are they talking to you? No, they're not talking to you. I know. They're making statements. Just, you know, that's what they think. So this administration has had the best shared governance record that I've ever seen, because the president works with all portions of the school: the students, the faculty, the staff, the administration, and the board of trustees. We share everything. Nothing gets to the board unless it's been through many, many stops. Nothing. So to say that we don't have shared governance, that is not true. That is not the truth. Okay? We welcome community input. We have citizens advisory committees. People that have interest in certain areas of the community, they belong to these committees. Hence, we get input from the citizens. We're here to serve the citizens, but we have to know how can we serve you. If you want us to serve you, you have lots of opportunities. So we're not a transparent, Miss Transparency, board, and we do things that we feel is best for the community. Thank you.
Marsha is quite correct in, is this on?
There we go.
Okay. Marsha is quite correct in saying that it's a legal norm, this thing about shared governance. But it's also a practical thing. During my time as president of the Academic Senate, we used shared governance all the time because it worked. But there is something about shared governance that we need to understand. It can be messy, it can be loud, it can be long. All of that is part of this simple idea that we came up with over 200 years ago. It's called democracy, and it works. But you have to have a little patience. You can't cut people off. You can't just invite them in, have them sit in a corner, and then tell them you don't want to listen to them. You have to actually hear them. I think I'll stop right there.
So I think we all agree on what shared governance is and what participatory governance is here, and it just gets down to how are we going to implement it at the school. And one thing that hasn't been spoken about here is just creating an atmosphere where people feel welcome. I really don't believe I would be here as a candidate today if people were satisfied that they had been heard and that they had really participated in that shared governance. I had no intention of running. I was approached by people to run who were dissatisfied with lack of process. That's part of the shared governance that we need here. So things that I would do to make the shared governance happen would be to be curious, to ask questions. We have an Educational Policies Committee that hasn't met since March of 2009. That committee could have been meeting over this 16, 18-month period and gathering information and hearing reports on information to get to know the public better and to get to know their input on the specific things that were before the board. So I would want to create a kind of a peaceful, welcoming atmosphere and open the board up to dialogue, and that includes hearing things that we're for and against. Lastly, Marsha usually brings this up. What do I have, 15 seconds? You know, sometimes decisions just get passed or brought to the board, we've noticed from the minutes, and then the board, you know, chooses to ratify them or not. And what I would like to see is, the recommendations coming from the administration and also the choices that they decided weren't appropriate. And I'd like to see the pros and cons of those choices. So not only do we have this recommendation coming to the board, but we see the other ideas that were involved in the discussion and get to consider the pros and cons. Thanks so much.
Now we go to the second